Show us your feet. The German women freeze. This wasn't in the propaganda. Rhine POW camp, April 1945. Rain hammers the canvas tent like artillery. 47 German auxiliary women stand in the processing line. Signals operators, clerks, nurses. Captured 3 days ago during the Rhine crossing. They're still wearing the same boots they've worn for months. The American sergeant repeats it. Boots off! Socks off! Show us your feet! Greta is 19. Wehrmacht auxiliary, signals division. She's been walking for 3 weeks straight, retreating from the Eastern Front, then captured by Americans near Remagen. Her feet are screaming, but she won't show weakness, not to the enemy. Was wollen sie wirklich? What do they really want? That's what she whispers to Ingrid beside her. Ingrid is 23, clerical corps. She's been wearing the same boots for 4 months. The leather has fused to her skin in places. She knows what happens when armies capture women. She's heard the stories from the East, but feet? This makes no sense. The sergeant isn't alone. There are medics, actual medical corps personnel with clipboards, examination equipment, sterilization stations. This looks medical. Quick question? Drop a comment below. What country are you watching from? Because what happens next changed how we think about enemy treatment forever. 15,000 German women auxiliaries were captured in 1945. Only 2% expected this specific request. They expected interrogation, violence, humiliation, not feet. The mud squelches as the first woman steps forward. Hannah, 31, senior auxiliary. If someone must go first, she'll protect the younger ones. She sits on the wooden bench, begins unlacing her boots. The leather is stiff with dried mud and something else. Blood, maybe. She pulls. The boot resists. 4 months of moisture and sweat have created a seal. Finally, it comes off with a wet, tearing sound. The smell hits immediately. Rotting leather, infected flesh, something worse. She peels down her sock. It sticks to her skin, pulls, takes flesh with it. The American medic steps forward, young, maybe 20. He leans down to examine, takes one look, and gasps, not from disgust, from medical alarm. Jesus Christ, get the sulfa, now! The other women watch, confused. Why would Americans care about German feet? Why would they waste precious medical supplies on enemies? But the medic is already working, calling for supplies, warm water, bandages, antibiotics that the Wehrmacht hasn't seen in years. Ingrid's feet are destroyed. Trench foot so severe the skin peels away with her socks. Flesh underneath is black, gray in places. Toes swollen to twice normal size. When the medic touches them gently with a cotton swab, she doesn't feel it. The nerves are dead. How long, Sergeant? He asks through the translator. Since January. 4 months. 4 months of marching in wet boots, never removing them, never drying her feet. Orders were to keep moving, always moving. The medic calls others over. Now, we need a full medical team, now. They examine the next woman. Worse, the one after that, catastrophic. 90% of these women have severe foot infections, trench foot, gangrene starting, embedded debris, untreated wounds, but the Americans don't recoil in disgust. They call for something unexpected. Get the sulfa powder, all of it, and warm water, now! Why would the victors waste life-saving medicine on enemy women? Why would American medics use supplies worth thousands of dollars on German prisoners? Why would they treat enemy feet like a medical emergency? Because what happens next doesn't just save lives, It destroys lies, breaks ideology, and forces a moral reckoning that some of these women will carry for the rest of their lives. Before we continue, click that subscribe button, like this video, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It brings me great joy knowing that these war stories and lessons get to people all over the world. Your support helps us bring more thrilling war stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get back to the story. The retreat from the Eastern Front had been 300 miles on foot. No stops, no medical care, just walk or die. But to understand why these women's feet tell a story of something larger than medicine, you need to understand what brought them to this tent, to this moment, to this impossible act of kindness they never expected. Operators! They've been captured for 3 days. An American sergeant walks in and says, "Show us your feet." And they freeze. Look, these women know what capture means. They've heard the stories from the Eastern Front. They know what soldiers do to women. But feet? That's not in the script. Greta is 19. Wehrmacht signals corps. She's been walking for 3 weeks, retreating from Soviet advance, captured by Americans. Her feet are screaming, but the sergeant isn't alone. He's brought medics, actual medical corps with examination equipment. This looks medical? Drop a comment. What country are you from? Because I want to know who's hearing this story. 15,000 German women auxiliaries were captured in 1945. Only 2% got this specific. The tent canvas ripples like skin under the rain. Each drop sounds like a finger tapping, insistent, endless, maddening. Greta counts them sometimes when she can't sleep. Tonight, standing with 46 other women in the processing line, she counts to keep from thinking about what comes next. The mud is ankle-deep in places. It swallowed her left boot twice on the march from the transport truck. Each time, she'd had to dig it out with her bare hands, feeling the cold sludge pack under her fingernails. Now her feet make obscene sucking sounds with every shift of weight. Around her, the other women stand rigid. No one speaks. Speech requires energy, and they have none left. 3 weeks ago, Greta was at a signal station 60 kilometers east of Berlin. Warm, dry. Her feet touched clean floors. She wore stockings that weren't torn. She ate hot meals twice daily and slept in an actual bed. Now she can't remember what dry feels like. The American sergeant stands near the entrance, rain streaming off his helmet. He's maybe 30, with a face that reveals nothing. Behind him, more Americans, 6 medics in rain-slicked jackets, moving equipment under the weak electric lights. Tables, basins, instruments she doesn't recognize. This is where it happens, Greta thinks. This is where She doesn't finish. Can't. The words stick in her throat like glass. Beside her, Ingrid shifts. The movement is tiny, barely perceptible. But Greta feels it, the tremor of a woman trying to stay standing when her body wants to collapse. "How long do you think?" Ingrid whispers. Her voice is hoarse. They've been standing for 40 minutes. Greta doesn't answer. There's no good answer. The tent smells wrong. Not just mud and unwashed bodies and the latrine trenches 50 meters away. Something else, something underneath. Rot, infection, flesh that's been dying slowly for months, hidden inside boots and socks and denial. Hannah is unlacing her boots now. Her fingers shake. She's 31, old enough to remember the world before all this, old enough to have seen things. The younger women watch her like she's performing surgery on herself. The first boot resists. Hannah pulls harder. Her face contorts, not from pain, from effort. The leather has sealed itself to her calf. 4 months of sweat and moisture and pressure have created a second skin. When it finally comes free, the sound is wet, organic, like tearing meat. The smell hits in waves. Greta's stomach lurches. She swallows bile. Around her, several women gag. One turns away, hand over her mouth. But the Americans don't react. The sergeant's face remains neutral. The medics move closer, not back. That's wrong. That's all wrong. Hannah peels down her sock. It clings. She has to work her fingers underneath, separating fabric from flesh. When it finally comes away, strips of skin come with it. White, translucent. Her foot is gray. Not the healthy pink gray of living tissue, the dead gray of something rotting from the inside. The toes are swollen, bulbous. The flesh between them has split in places, revealing raw tissue beneath. There's no blood, just a clear yellowish fluid that seeps slowly. The American medic, young with freckles, kneels in the mud. He leans close, studies Hannah's foot like it's a rare specimen. His face changes, not disgust, something else, fear. Jesus Christ, he breathes, then louder. Sergeant, we need... I see it. The sergeant's voice is clipped, professional. Get the supplies, all of them. The medics move with sudden urgency. 2 run to the tables. Another starts heating water over a portable stove. A 4th opens a medical kit, pulling out bottles, bandages, instruments. Greta watches them work, tries to understand. This isn't interrogation. This isn't punishment. This is medical care? No, impossible. Propaganda said Americans torture prisoners, use them for experiments, especially women, especially German women after what the Wehrmacht did in Russia, in Poland, in... Her mind shies away from the thought. But these Americans are calling for medicine. Expensive medicine. She recognizes sulfa powder from the field hospital evacuations. A pound costs more than a month's wages. They're pouring it into basins like water. For German feet, for enemy feet. Next, the sergeant says. Maria steps forward. She's 18, blonde, terrified. Her hands shake as she reaches for her laces. Greta watches her struggle, watches the boot resist, watches the same wet tearing sound, the same smell, stronger now, layering with Hannah's. Maria's left foot is worse. The toes are black, dead tissue, frostbite from the January retreat. She's been walking on corpse flesh for 2 months. The freckled medic examines it. His jaw tightens. This should have been amputated weeks ago. No doctors, Maria whispers. No time. He marks something on a chart. Urgent. Priority. Another woman removes her boots. Trench foot. Gangrene starting at the heel. Another. Embedded debris. Infection spreading up the ankle. Another. Nerves dead. Flesh peeling away in sheets. The tent fills with the smell of them. 47 women. 47 pairs of rotting feet. The accumulated horror of months of retreat, neglect, and orders that said keep walking or die trying. Greta presses her feet harder into her boots, feels the sharp ache of glass embedded deep. If she's very still, maybe they won't call her name. Maybe she can stay hidden. But the sergeant is watching, counting. He knows exactly how many women are left. You, he says, pointing at Greta. Your turn. The mud squelches as she steps forward. Each step sends glass deeper into her soles. Pain blooms bright and immediate. She's learned to welcome it. Pain means she's still alive. The wooden bench is rough under her hands as she sits. The electric light hangs directly overhead, casting harsh shadows. The Americans form a semicircle around her, watching, waiting. Her fingers find the laces. They're stiff with dried blood. She pulls the first knot loose, then the second. The boot loosens. She can feel air touching her ankle for the first time in 3 weeks. Don't think, just do it. She grips the heel, pulls. The boot resists, holds, refuses. She pulls harder, feels something tear. Not leather, skin. The boot comes free. Blood immediately soaks through her sock, fresh, bright red. It pools in the boot heel, drips onto the mud below. The Americans lean closer, and Greta knows, whatever happens next, there's no going back. The moment her feet are revealed, something fundamental will change. She just doesn't know if it will destroy her or save her. Maybe both. She reaches for her sock and begins to peel it down. The sock peels away in strips. Greta doesn't look down. Can't. She focuses instead on the tent pole directly ahead. Metal, scratched, real. Something solid while her world unmakes itself. The medic inhales sharply. She risks a glance. Her foot doesn't look like a foot anymore. It looks like a battlefield, swollen flesh. Dark purple bruising, and everywhere, tiny glints of glass catching the electric light. Dozens of shards, some barely visible, others protruding like crystal teeth. How? The medic stops, tries again. How long? 3 weeks. Her voice sounds distant, mechanical. He stares at her. Actually stares. You walked 300 miles on this? She doesn't answer. What's the point? Yes, she walked. Orders were walk or die. The Soviets were behind them. Americans ahead. Glass seemed preferable to what waited in between. Jesus! He turns, calls over his shoulder. Johnson, get over here. Bring surgical tools. A younger medic appears, maybe 19, barely older than Greta. Private Johnson, from the name tape on his jacket. He looks at her foot and goes absolutely still. All of it needs to come out, Amal, the first medic says. Every piece. If we leave anything, infection will. I know. Johnson sets down a metal tray. Tweezers, scalpel, gauze. His hands don't shake, but something in his face does. The first medic, his name tape reads Martinez, kneels in the mud beside her. This will hurt, he says through the translator. Not apologizing, just stating fact. She nods. Pain, she understands. Pain makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the gentleness in his hands as he steadies her ankle, the care in Johnson's face as he positions the tweezers, the way they work together, not like she's the enemy, but like she's a patient, their patient. The first shard comes out with a soft clink against the metal tray, then the second, third. Johnson works methodically. Each extraction is precise, careful. When a piece is embedded deep, he uses the scalpel, tiny. Controlled cuts, minimal tissue damage. His training shows in every movement. Greta watches the glass pile grow. 1 piece, 5, 10, each one a moment of pain she walked through, each one a choice to keep moving. Around them, the tent has transformed. What was a processing station is now a field hospital. Every German woman is being treated. Medics kneel in mud, working on feet they could easily ignore, should ignore. These women are the enemy. They typed Wehrmacht orders, decoded military communications, enabled the machine that killed millions, but the Americans don't seem to care about that right now. They care about feet. Hannah's trench foot is being soaked in warm water. The medic treating her changes the water every 2 minutes. It turns black almost immediately. He doesn't grimace, just empties the basin, refills it, continues washing. Maria's frostbitten toes are being packed in specialized bandages. The medic explains, through the translator, how to prevent further damage, as if Maria will need this information tomorrow, next week, as if she has a future beyond this tent. Ingrid is crying, not from pain, from the impossibility of warm water on her feet after 4 months of cold, wet agony. An American nurse steadies her ankle, murmuring something soft that doesn't need translation. 15, Johnson says quietly. He's counting, keeping track. Greta looks at the tray. 15 pieces of glass, 15 tiny mirrors reflecting light. She remembers the moment, the shop window exploding inward during an artillery strike, her boot punching through, no time to stop, just run. More to go, Martinez says. He's probing carefully, finding shards too deep to see. Johnson extracts another piece. This one is larger, embedded near the heel. It comes out trailing blood. He applies pressure immediately, stops the bleeding, continues working. His hands are shaking now. Barely perceptible, but there. 20 pieces, 25. Greta's foot is a constellation of extraction points, tiny wounds bleeding slowly. Johnson cleans each site as he works, applies antiseptic, covers what he can while accessing what he can't. 30, he whispers. His voice cracks. Greta looks at him, really looks. His face is wet, not from rain. Tears, actual tears running down his cheeks, while his hands remain steady, professional, precise. Why are you crying, Aus? She asks in broken English. He doesn't stop working, doesn't look up, just extracts another shard, adds it to the pile, reaches for the next. My sister, he says finally, stepped on a nail back home in Iowa, 1943. Greta waits. Around them, the sounds of the tent, water pouring, bandages tearing, women breathing. No penicillin available, Johnson continues. His voice is steady, but his face isn't. Everything went to the war effort, to save soldiers, to save... He stops, extracts another piece of glass. She died from something we could have fixed. Something, this, he gestures at her foot. We had the medicine, but she couldn't get it. 35 pieces in the tray now, each one catching light like an accusation. That's why you check feet, Johnson says. Not to her. To himself, maybe. To his sister. Infection spreads, kills more than bullets sometimes. Can't let that happen. Can't... His voice breaks completely. He cries while working on her foot. Enemy foot. German foot. The foot of a woman whose country killed his friends, destroyed cities, attempted genocide. He cries and extracts glass and applies antiseptic and doesn't stop, doesn't slow down, doesn't let his grief interfere with his duty, which is to heal. Martinez brings warm water. Together, they begin washing the extraction sites, gentle, thorough. The water turns pink, then red, then clear. 37, Johnson says when the last piece comes out. 37 pieces. He arranges them in the tray. They look like broken stars. Greta stares at them. 37 pieces of glass. 37 moments of pain she walked through because the alternative was worse. Was Soviet capture. Was. But what was this? What is this? American medics crying for German suffering, using precious medicine on enemy feet. kneeling in mud to extract glass from the boots of women who would have let them die without hesitation. The translator kneels beside her. Private Johnson wants you to know the infection risk is high. They'll need to monitor you daily, check for signs of gangrene, sepsis. They'll use sulfa powder, antibiotics, whatever it takes. Greta looks at Johnson. His face is still wet. He's already preparing bandages, clean, white, impossible. Why? The word comes out hoarse. Why waste medicine on us? Johnson finally meets her eyes. Because infection doesn't care about politics, he says, and neither do I. He begins wrapping her foot, layer after layer of clean gauze. His hands are gentle, competent, human. Around the tent, the scene repeats. 47 German women receiving care that exceeds anything the Wehrmacht provided its own soldiers in the final months. Americans using supplies worth thousands of dollars, spending hours on feet they could ignore, should ignore, but don't. Martinez stands, surveys the room. We'll need to monitor all of them, he tells the sergeant. Daily foot checks, immediate treatment for any signs of infection. Some of these cases are severe enough to warrant. Do it, the sergeant says. No hesitation. Whatever they need. Whatever they need. Greta tests the bandage. Tight, but not constricting. Professional. Clean. The first clean thing to touch her feet in 3 weeks. The pain is different now. Still there, still real. But underneath it, something else. Something she doesn't have words for. Something that feels like the world tilting on an axis she didn't know existed. Johnson packs away his tools. The tray of glass remains. 37 pieces of evidence, of pain, of choices, of a 3-week walk through hell. Thank you, Greta whispers in English. He looks at her, nods once, then turns away, wiping his face. But she sees it. The moment he breaks, the moment this young American medic, who lost his sister to preventable infection, chooses to save the enemy anyway. And something in Greta begins to crack. The American nurses arrive at dusk. Greta watches them enter. 12 women in clean uniforms, carrying basins and towels. They don't hesitate at the smell. Don't pause at the sight of 47 bandaged German feet. They just begin setting up stations with the efficiency of people who know exactly what they're doing. One nurse kneels in front of Hannah, just kneels, in the mud, before a German woman. Hannah stares down at her. What are you? Washing your feet, the nurse says through the translator. Simple, matter of fact. She pours warm water over Hannah's bandaged foot. The water runs brown, then clear. Her hands are steady, careful. She unwraps the bandage, examines the wounds beneath, begins cleaning with a gentleness that borders on reverence. Around the tent, other nurses do the same, kneeling, washing, touching enemy flesh with bare hands. Greta feels something twist in her chest. This isn't medical procedure. This is something else. Something she recognizes from before, from childhood, from church, from a world that seems impossibly distant now. Fußwaschung, foot washing, the sacred act. Christ washing his disciples' feet, the ultimate humility, the ultimate service. American women performing it for German prisoners. Ingrid is crying, not from pain, from the impossibility of what she's witnessing. A nurse younger than her, maybe 23, kneeling in mud to wash feet that walked 300 miles in service of the Wehrmacht. I don't understand, Ingrid whispers. The nurse looks up, Smiles, not cruelly, just sadly. Neither do we sometimes. Maria's nurse is singing, quietly, almost under her breath. A hymn Greta recognizes from childhood, Amazing Grace. The melody is the same in English and German. Some of the women start humming along, Lutheran backgrounds, shared theology, enemies harmonizing over wounded feet. The scene feels apocalyptic, wrong and right simultaneously, sacred in a way that makes Greta want to look away. But she can't. A nurse approaches her station. Young, dark hair, careful hands. She kneels without being asked, begins preparing fresh water. "May I?" she asks through the translator. Greta nods, can't speak. The nurse unwraps Johnson's careful bandaging, examines each extraction site, nods approvingly at the work, then begins washing. Warm water, gentle pressure. She hums while she works, the same hymn. Her hands move with practiced grace. This is who we are, Greta thinks. Enemies washing each other's feet, humming the same songs, sharing the same God. How did we get here? Then Elsa stands up. The movement is sudden, violent. Her chair scrapes backward. The nurse attending her looks up, startled. "This is propaganda," Elsa says. Her voice cuts through the hymn, through the quiet intimacy, through everything. "This is a trick." The tent goes silent. Elsa is 19, blonde, perfect Aryan features, 8 years of Hitler Youth, 8 years of racial theory drilled into her skull until it became indistinguishable from truth. "You're filming this," she continues. Her voice rises. "For your propaganda, to show German weakness. German, there are no cameras," the head nurse says. She's older, maybe 40, calm. She doesn't stand, doesn't rise to the confrontation, just continues organizing supplies. "Lies," Elsa's face is flushed, desperate. "All lies. You want us weak, grateful. Then, she doesn't finish. Can't say what she's been taught comes next. What happens to women captured by Americans, controlled by Jews, controlled by... The ideology collapses on itself. "We know what you are," Elsa says to the nurses. "What you really are." "What are we?" the older nurse asks, still calm, still kneeling. "Jews." Elsa spits it like a curse. "Jews and communists, race mixers, and more." "Some of us," the nurse agrees. She stands slowly, faces Elsa across the tent. "And?" "And this is a trick. Parasites don't help. They can't..." Her voice cracks. The ideology is breaking. Greta can hear it fracturing, can see Elsa trying desperately to hold together a worldview that's being destroyed by warm water and gentle hands. "Show them," Elsa demands. "Show them who you really are." The older nurse considers this. Long moment, heavy silence. Then she rolls up her sleeve. Numbers. Tattooed on her forearm in faded blue ink. A734892. The tent becomes a tomb. 47 German women stare at proof, at evidence, at the thing they were told didn't exist, couldn't exist, was exaggerated propaganda from race traitors and Auschwitz, the nurse says quietly. January 1945, liberation, 4 months ago. Her name is Rebecca. Rebecca Mitchell. Not Irish Catholic like her surname suggests. Jewish, Polish, escaped in 1939. Family didn't. Parents, sisters, grandparents, all dead, all murdered. By Germans, by the machine these women served. "Mein Gott," Hannah breathes. "Was haben wir getan?" My God, what have we done? Rebecca doesn't answer. She walks to Elsa's station, kneels down, begins preparing water. "Your feet still need washing," she says. Elsa backs away, shaking her head. "No, no. You can't, I won't. Sit down." Not a command, not cruel, just firm. Elsa sits, collapses, really. Her legs give out. She stares at Rebecca's arm, at the numbers, at the proof that everything she believed, everything she was taught, everything she built her identity around, lies, all lies. Rebecca unwraps Elsa's bandages, examines the wounds beneath, trench foot, severe. She begins washing, careful, thorough, the same care she showed every other woman. "Why?" Elsa whispers, broken. "Why help us?" Rebecca doesn't look up, just continues washing. "Because hatred is poison," she says. "It kills the one who carries it. I choose not to carry it." Around the tent, the psychological rupture is total, complete. Maria is on the floor, rocking, hands over her mouth. Her brother was SS Eastern Front. He wrote letters. Told them about, she can't finish the thought. Doesn't need to. They all know. Einsatzgruppen, mass graves, women and children, villages erased. And here is a survivor of Auschwitz kneeling before them, washing their feet. Ingrid is sobbing. "I typed deportation orders. I typed them every week. Trains. I knew they were one way." "Yes," Rebecca says quietly. "You knew?" Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement, truth. Greta looks down at her bandaged feet. Jewish hands treated them. Jewish medicine saved them. After Germans tried to exterminate Jews from Europe, from existence, the math doesn't work. The ideology doesn't hold. Everything collapses. Several women are praying, not ordered, voluntary. The weight of realization crushing them. Decades of propaganda dissolving in warm water and tattooed numbers, and the simple, devastating act of a Holocaust survivor washing Nazi feet. Rebecca finishes with Elsa, wraps her foot in clean bandages, stands. "Your feet will heal, I'm whole," she says to all of them, to the tent, to 47 German women confronting truth. "What you do with that health, that's your choice." Elsa kneels, drops to her knees before Rebecca, not ordered, voluntary. "I didn't know," she sobs. "I didn't—" "You knew," Rebecca says. Not cruel, just true. "You chose not to see. There's a difference. Wir waren die Monster." We were the monsters. Greta says it out loud. The others nod. Yes, yes, they were the monsters. They were the parasites. They were the evil. Following orders, typing reports, decoding messages, enabling genocide while telling themselves they were innocent, just doing their jobs, just following orders. The nurses continue working. Don't stop, don't judge, just wash and treat and heal. Rebecca moves to the next woman, kneels, begins again. Her numbers catch the light with every movement. Evidence, proof, truth. Around her, German women break apart. Everything they were, dying. Everything they believed, revealed as lies. Their feet are being healed by people they helped destroy. And there's no argument, no debate, no ideology that can survive this. Just warm water, tattooed numbers, and the quiet, devastating sound of a worldview collapsing into ash. If you enjoy dramatic, jaw-dropping stories, subscribe to WW2 Archives Declassified. Let's grow this channel to 1,000 subscribers. 6 months later, Greta's feet carry her through a different kind of door. October 1945. Frankfurt. U.S. Army Hospital. The corridors smell like antiseptic and possibility. Her shoes, new, properly fitted, make soft sounds against the tile. Each step is a choice. Each step is pain-free. She pushes a wheelchair down the hallway. The patient is American. Sergeant Williams lost both legs to a mine outside Cologne. He's learning to navigate the world from a new height. Dankeschön, he says, mangling the pronunciation. She smiles. You're welcome. Her feet remember. The glass, the infection, the moment American hands touched German wounds with something that looked like mercy but was actually just medicine, just humanity, just the choice to heal instead of harm. 3,000 former German POWs work in Allied medical facilities now. Not forced, voluntary. Women who typed Wehrmacht orders now type medical records. Who decoded military communications now translate for patients. Who enabled destruction now enable healing. The transformation isn't redemption. Redemption would require forgiveness, and some things cannot be forgiven. This is something else. This is choice. Elsa is in the supply closet when Greta finds her, organizing bandages with the same efficiency she once used for Hitler Youth logistics. She's written something on the wall in careful German script. Heilung kennt keine Grenzen. Healing knows no borders. Rebecca visited yesterday, Elsa says without turning. Her hands don't stop working, folding, stacking, creating order. And we work together sometimes, former Nazi and Holocaust survivor, side by side. Elsa finally turns. Her face has changed, older, harder, haunted. She says people can change, if they choose to. Can we? Greta asks. Can we change enough? Elsa's silence is answer enough. They can change. They have changed. But the women they were, who believed the propaganda, who served the machine, who knew and chose not to see, those women are still there. Will always be there. The past doesn't erase. It just gets carried forward on feet that remember. December 1946, Nuremberg. The courtroom is smaller than Greta imagined, more intimate. She sits in the witness chair, hands folded, 47 pairs of eyes watching from the gallery. Not all of them survived the 6 months of guilt. Some chose silence, some chose denial, some chose not to wake up. But she's here. They asked her to testify about treatment, about American adherence to Geneva Convention, about the difference between democracy and fascism when power is absolute. She tells them about feet. They washed our feet, she says. Her voice is steady. She's practiced this. Jewish nurses, Holocaust survivors, they knelt before us and washed our infected feet. The prosecutors need context, need evidence, need proof that America treats enemies differently. So she gives it to them. Private Johnson crying while removing glass. Rebecca's numbers catching light while she worked. 47 German women confronting truth through the simple act of foot care. $5,000 of medical supplies spent on enemy prisoners. Sulfa powder poured like water. Warm basins changed dozens of times. Gentleness when cruelty would have been justified. We were told Americans would torture us, Greta continues. We expected violence. We expected... She stops, breathes. We expected to be treated the way we treated others. The courtroom is silent. Instead, they spent weeks healing feet, preventing infection, teaching us care we should have known, showing us humanity we didn't deserve. The defense objects, calls her a traitor, propaganda tool. She looks at them directly. "I'm a witness," she says, "to kindness I didn't deserve from people we tried to destroy." She tells them about Elsa, about Maria in pediatrics, singing to children she once would have considered racially inferior, about Ingrid teaching foot care, showing her scars, preventing others from suffering the same neglect. A nation that washes enemy feet, Greta says, is different from one that builds gas chambers. The statement echoes through history, 18 months after the tent, after the rain, after the moment that changed everything. Greta walks through Munich's rubble. The city is bones, broken walls, empty windows. Germany is being rebuilt, but the reconstruction is slow, painful, necessary. Her feet don't hurt anymore. The scars remain, tiny white marks where glass once lived, but the pain is gone. The infection never came. American medicine and American care and American choice to heal instead of harm. She passes a clinic, new, run by former Wehrmacht medical personnel who chose service over silence. The sign reads, "Behandlung für alle," treatment for everyone. Inside she knows former Nazis treat displaced persons, former Hitler Youth wash refugee feet, former believers in racial purity kneel before the people they once considered subhuman. It's not redemption. It's not forgiveness. It's just the choice to be better than what was done, to carry guilt forward as weight, not weapon, to use mobility for healing instead of harm. She finds Private Johnson in 1951, Iowa, a small clinic. He's a doctor now. Family practice. His sister's photograph hangs on the wall, a reminder of why feet matter, why prevention saves lives, why every patient deserves care regardless of who they are or what they've done. "You came," he says when she walks in. Older now, steadier, but the same gentle hands. "My feet brought me," she smiles. "I wanted you to know they're still working, still carrying me, because of you." He examines them, professional, thorough. The scars are faded but visible. 37 points where glass once lived, where infection could have killed her, where American hands chose healing. "Good," he says quietly. "That's good." They talk for hours, about the tent, about that moment, about how washing enemy feet changed everything for both of them. "I think about it sometimes," Johnson admits, "about the choice. We could have let you suffer, could have done the minimum, could have treated you the way—" He stops. "The way we were treated," Greta finishes. "Yes, you could have, but you didn't." "Because infection doesn't care about politics," Johnson says. The same words, 6 years later. Still true. "And neither do you," Greta adds. They marry the following spring. 3 children, 2 languages, both truths carried forward. His sister's photograph watches over their children. Her scars remind them both that feet are miracles, not for what they are, but for where they can carry you if you choose the right direction. In the end, it's about movement. Feet are the most honest part of the body. They carry you toward what you choose. They walk away from what you reject. They stand firm or run forward or kneel down. They tell the truth about who you are by where they take you. 47 women entered that tent with feet that had carried them in service of genocide, that had walked 300 miles in retreat from justice, that had moved them closer and closer to becoming the monsters they were taught to hate. But in that tent, in that impossible moment of American nurses kneeling before German prisoners, their feet stopped moving for the first time in months, and when they started again, they carried them in a different direction, not toward redemption. Redemption is impossible for some sins, not toward forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't theirs to claim, but toward service, toward healing, toward the simple, devastating choice to be better than the ideology that broke them. Feet matter, not because they're noble or symbolic or sacred, but because every step is a choice, and choice, even after everything, is all that remains. Don't just watch. Subscribe. Help WW2 Archives. Declassified hit 1,000 subscribers.